So many of you have such big dreams for starting a nonprofit, and in many of those dreams, you're gonna require some space. I'm talking physical space, a building. How do nonprofits go about getting a building? How do they raise the money? How do they move in? All of that good stuff is what we're going to discuss in this nonprofit founder interview of my friend Michelle, who founded and is now the executive director of the Diaper Bank of North Carolina. I hope you find her story inspiring and educational. Perhaps you're in your own journey of starting or growing a nonprofit and wondering, how are you going to get a building of your very own to increase your impacts? Well, Michelle's story can set you on the right path. And if we haven't met before, I'm Amber Melanie Smith, nonprofit founder, social entrepreneur, and social impact YouTuber who makes these videos all about nonprofits, social entrepreneurship, fundraising, leadership, and all the ways you can make an impact. Check out my website, changemakercafe.com, for more resources to help you on your change-making journey, including our new Changemaker Accelerator membership to help guide you along the way in community with others doing the same. All right, let's meet Michelle. Okay, so share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what happens here at the Diaper Bank.
My name is Michelle Schaefer-Old, and I founded the Diaper Bank in 2013 from my kitchen table.
Wow.
My goal was just to provide 50,000 diapers in Durham, North Carolina. We now provide over 7.5 million diapers statewide. We serve 65 counties in North Carolina out of 100, and we cover a lot of bottoms in North Carolina.
I love that. Cover a lot of bottoms.
We do.
Yeah. Okay. So 2013, and how many people did you serve that year?
So we served about, I don't know the number.
Okay, so thinking in terms of diapers, right?
Yes, okay. So my goal was 50,000 diapers. We served 150,000 diapers that first year.
Wow.
And
150,000 the first year?
That's right.
From
Yeah.
your kitchen?
From my kitchen.
Okay. And so quick math here, about how many people, like how many people is that? Like each person gets how many diapers?
We do 50 diapers per child per month.
Per month?
That's right.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we started with period products right from the beginning. And so in the beginning, it started out at my kitchen table, a laundry basket full of diapers, and I was hand delivering them to individuals and community partners. And then we moved into a church that did our very first drive for us. And they said, you know, we have all this space. Would you want to come here and utilize some of this space? And we were able to do that in the very beginning. So that really helped us level up, and it helped me to be able to take it from my kitchen and my living room and my closets and my kitchen and my bathroom to a place where we can organize and bring in not just my friends to volunteer, but then volunteers from the community.
Because you don't need random stranger volunteers come to your kitchen.
Exactly.
This is so relatable because when I first started my organization, we sometimes needed a lot of supplies for our events. And at the time, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment. And I just remember like Amazon and various boxes just stacked from floor to ceiling. And I think a lot of people know the famous stories of these huge businesses who got their start in someone's garage, but we don't realize that it's the same of nonprofits and social entrepreneurs.
That's right. And once we moved into the church, it was a little fellowship hall, maybe the size of 2 rooms, and I thought, I will never fill this space up. Like, I'll be in here forever. And every single warehouse we've moved into, I said the exact same thing. I'll never fill this space up, but we continue to grow and need more space, which just speaks to the need and how many families struggle every single month.
Actually, I want to pause there for a second and just have you explain a little bit, for those who are not familiar with this social issue, what is the need that you're addressing and why does it require all the space to address it?
We see 1 in 2 families that experience diaper needs. So 47% of the families in America live in poverty.
47%?
And cannot afford the most simple things like diapers, period products, adult incontinence supplies. And WIC and food stamps do not cover those items. So, there's a lot of talk in our community about food insecurity, which is so important. It's also important to know that if someone is struggling for food, they're struggling with hygiene items. They cannot afford them. 76% are working 1 to 3 jobs and still cannot afford the most basic hygiene items. And so every day, working families in our community, teachers, military families, they're all struggling just to afford the most basic needs.
So with so much incredible need, and that's just in the regions you're serving, it's pretty clear that you need a space to do all this work in, to house all the materials, all that stuff. And you started in your kitchen, and you moved to a kind and generous church willing to let you use their space. How did you know when it was time to get your own space? What were the signs?
Yeah, for us, we were forced into that position. So we had a theft and 13,000 diapers were stolen.
Wow.
And we were in the church. It was something that we didn't expect. And so I wrote a little article for the local newspaper just to let people know, number 1, what a diaper bank is, and number 2, what had happened. And I really just thought the community would do a drive for us and get us back on the ground running. And it actually went viral. We were in 65 news stations across the country.
Wow.
We were in the Today Show and Huffington Post. We were in New Zealand news, and the headline read, "Napsters Fleece Nappy Bank," which is really cool. And what was amazing about that experience is we had diapers sent to us from around the world.
Wow.
130,000 diapers in 1 week. The challenge of that was the business address was my home address, and they were all delivered to my home. They had to designate 5 UPS drivers to bring diapers to this house. They were blocking my doors and my porch and my back porch. I had to get trucks to get into my house. On the 3rd day, I came with trucks, and the UPS guys were there unloading, and they were like, "How many children do you have? Like,
Oh, no.
What is going on?" But that really forced us to realize that we were shoving ourselves into this space that we were quickly outgrowing, even before the theft. And it forced me to reach out to the community. And I reached out on a community listserv and said, "We had a theft. The entire world's been generous, and we need warehouse space." And that's when we heard from a community member who says, "I can help you with that." And so it wasn't the way I had envisioned the growth and finding our first warehouse space, but that's how our journey was. But really connecting to your community, letting your community be involved in your mission and what you're trying to do is the lesson that I learned from having that experience of the theft.
And that's so important as any kind of nonprofit or social impact leader. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know, or you may have seen that I interviewed a woman, Amy Weiss from Houston, Texas. She started this organization called Undies for Everyone. Some similarities, in mission and approach, but she talks about the importance of the pivot and being open to adjusting things when unexpected occurrences happen in your community. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned there.
Yeah, and I was still in the mindset that I was going to make that church work. So I kept asking them for, can I put some in this office and in this closet? And it really forced me to see that the need was greater. And we were meeting a need that was not being met and that we had to grow.
So I know we have a lot of folks thinking of starting a nonprofit, or perhaps in the process of growing a nonprofit, or perhaps you're even a more established nonprofit and you're thinking, we might be in the market for some space also, but you have no idea how to even approach this. Fortunately, we have a pro here. So I'd love to hear if you were advising another social impact person on the steps required to secure a space or a building, what would those steps be?
Yeah, it's really we have 4 warehouses in the state.
Multiple spaces.
We move from kitchen to church to warehouse to now 4 warehouses, and each community is different. So really looking at your community and the support that you have in each, and also we also created like a hub. So we have one main warehouse and we distribute out to other warehouses. So we didn't need the same type of warehouse in different spaces. Having conversations with county and city leaders.
Interesting.
Really talking about the impact that you're having in the community with the families you're serving and the need that you're seeing. Inviting those leaders into your space, whatever it may be. I remember a city council member coming through the church and how proud I was to show of that space, and how I continue that today, even though I'm now in a 26,000 square foot space. I'm still proud and inviting those community leaders in and letting them in on the work that we're doing in their community. Talking to folks, you'd be surprised by how much space is out there and that you could just use a part of. Our first warehouse we shared with a company, and those employees became like our employees. They were unloading trucks of diapers with us and loading them up, and so it's really building a community around you and having the support from the community to do the work that you're doing in that community, I think has been very successful for us as we move and grow and utilize these spaces. Our last move was probably our biggest move, and we ended up deciding between leasing versus buying. We were in a position that we could consider that, and what I determined was that my focus was on our mission, which was covering bottoms and distributing dignity, and I did not want to be a landlord. Mm-hmm. I wanted, if I had a problem with the leak, I wanted to call someone so that they could fix that. I didn't want to take bandwidth away from our mission to fix a building and to make sure it was where it needed to be. I really wanted, and that's where we leaned towards leasing long term, and then actually signed our longest lease that we've ever signed. So we've always done 3 to 5 years. We're now at a 10-year lease.
So unfortunately, space isn't often free. Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, it can happen sometimes, but we should assume that we have to cover the cost of the space. So let's talk a little bit about what should someone potentially needing space consider in terms of the costs, the funding requirements, the maintenance, like what all goes into this, and what might someone expect to pay for a space like this?
Even leasing, there's so much to think about. So in our situation, we had to make sure that we had a space that was big enough and could handle the ins and outs of our work. We had to have a loading dock. Mm-hmm. When we're dealing with our product, people assume it's still me with a laundry basket of diapers, but it's pallets and pallets and truckloads of diapers. And we are pushing out 600,000 diapers a month out of this one warehouse. And even though I didn't want to be my own landlord and have to take care of some of the costs that purchasing a building would have, we still have to take care of things like the HVAC. That is not included in your rent, so we have to have maintenance on that. Fire extinguishers, every year we have to pay the fee for that, and water and gas and heat and electricity, and so
just
all
like a
of
house.
those, all of those things you have to consider. And for us, I would say, as a founder of a nonprofit and used to the community's generosity and lending us space, that was a big change and shift for me personally and our organization to say, no, to do the work we need to do, we need something big and we need to pay for it. And that's difficult. And I often ask myself when we make these very expensive decisions for ourselves is, how many diapers can I buy with that money? But in the end, is exactly what we needed to scale up and to serve more families. And it ended up working out. But we write a lot of grants. We get a lot of donations. We have built those relationships in the county with legislators where we're now written into the county budgets.
Wow.
And so that is why it's so important to have those invitations go out, making sure that people are coming in, hearing about the work that you do, and they get invested. It really becomes a community-based organization at that point. And even though I'm the founder and the focus tends to be on what I created, I could not have done it without the generosity of the communities that we're in.
We talk a lot in other videos about the importance of those relationships and how this isn't a solo gig. Even if you're, someone who likes to work alone, you can't do it alone.
No.
Obviously, when you're talking about real estate, land, etc., location matters. So I know that this would be different depending on the city or region that you're in, viewer. But talk to me a little bit about what someone might expect to pay for a space like this, which is 26,000 square feet.
That's right. So it, of course, is going to depend on your region and where you're looking. So we were founded in a community where I lived, where I started the Diaper Bank, where I wanted to stay, and thought I'm just going to stay in this community. And as we started to look for larger space, we realized we could not afford to stay there. And that was also hard for me because sometimes we get a mindset and we do not sway from that. So I thought, we're Durham founded, we're going to stay in Durham. And we ended up having to move to another community to find a space that was large enough and that we could afford. So if we had stayed in the community that I wanted to stay in, where we were founded, we would have paid over $30,000 a month for a 26,000 square foot warehouse. And we were able to go a county over, and we now spend $15,000 a month and locked in on a 10-year lease. So really,
wow,
making sure that our vision and what we have in mind doesn't stop us from identifying what is the best way of moving forward for your organization and your mission. And sometimes we can be stubborn and think we want it a certain way, and it ends up being a totally different way. And now we're embraced by this community. The mayor came to our open house. City council members come by and volunteer. We love it here, and so it was a good lesson for me to learn, and also to understand that warehousing is very expensive, and leveling up is expensive, and it can be scary, but it also can really help you increase your distribution or increase your mission to serve more families.
And I think what's important to acknowledge is that a building might seem like overhead or but really it's central to your mission. You can't make this big of an impact without this infrastructure.
Absolutely, 100%. And we work with 800 volunteers a month that come through these doors to help us do our work, and we need a space that they wanted to come into, that they enjoyed being at, and that they spend a lot of time here helping us do the work that we do. And so it was a good move for us, but it's scary. And when you actually add up the numbers per year of what you spend on warehousing, then that becomes even scarier. So really kind of working with your board, making sure you have a solid budget, the important things you need. For us, it's product, so we can serve families, staff, making sure that they're making a living wage and that they can do this important work that we're doing together, and warehousing. That is where we spend our money.
Your warehouse is obviously set up to accommodate the wonderful work of volunteers. What is this over here? This thing, it looks like a little playpen.
Yeah, when I started the Diaper Bank, my children, 3 of them, were small. And so they came to the Diaper Bank with me every single day. And I really wanted the space to be where anybody felt comfortable coming at all ages. And I know there's not a lot of places that kids can volunteer at. And I needed a little play area for my kids while I was doing the work, and so that just continued to every warehouse that we have. Is we set up a play area, we make sure it's safe so that mothers can come and they can volunteer and get out of the house. And their kids love volunteering, but sometimes they get distracted and then they can go and play for a little bit and then come back. And it's just a wonderful way of making sure that all ages are able to come and give back to their community.
What I love about that is it's like the physical manifestation of your values, right? So you can see your values because there they are.
Yes.
I didn't expect you to say anything. I'll put this in the blooper reel. For leaders thinking of starting a fundraising campaign to acquire a space, what are some things they need to think about, or how should they approach that?
First of all, they should never do that alone. They should be working with their board to really figure out what the plan is. And by the time they start to advertise that they're doing any kind of capital campaign or fundraising for something, they should probably have at least half of their budget already under wraps.
You call it a quiet phase of the fundraising campaign.
And in that way, you're really getting folks involved to close that gap for you to make it happen. But your board really needs to be leading these efforts with you, and it's not you working solo. And I've had a hard time to figure that out in the past, and I'm learning how important that is as a founder. And then making sure that you're taking into account all of the things that you need to take account in. The HVAC monthly, them coming out to check that. And we have things pop up all the time that we have to take care of that our landlord will not. We had a smell in the bathroom.
Oh.
And so we had to figure out how to deal with that. We had a roof leak that, yes, we had to have the landlord take care of, but in the meantime, until they did, we had to figure out how to move product around that. And so there's just a lot of things that come up, as with any home or any space that you own, that you have to maneuver around and make sure that you can manage.
Any final thoughts on things people need to consider if they're going to get a space of their own for their nonprofit?
Anything can come up. We have had mice in our warehouse that we had to deal with. We have had a water line break inside the warehouse, and diapers do what they do best. They soak things up, and so we had to come in and figure out how to maneuver that. We have a warehouse along the coast that when a storm comes in, which comes in often, we have to move product to higher ground. So there's a lot of things that we're constantly managing and making sure that it's a clean space, because we have products that need to stay clean and dry, and it's a workable space and a safe space, especially as we have little kids that are coming in. So we make sure we cordon off areas so that they're not roaming around and they stay where we need them to stay. And so there's just a lot to consider, but I will say that it's all worth it. I love having people in here doing this work with us. I love having our community in here. I love it when the kids are here, and I love the work we do out of this building.
There's nothing like being able to have your community in it with you, literally in person, seeing it happen. How can people support the Diaper Bank?
Well, if you're in North Carolina, you can volunteer, you can make a donation, you can, we have an Amazon wish list of all our greatest needs, and you can send a box of diapers our way. I would say that if you're outside of North Carolina, finding another program in your community that's doing this work around basic needs is so important. Granted, I would love diapers sent to me from all over the place, but I think that there's a lot of good work doing, and there is not a community in the United States that isn't dealing with lack of hygiene items, not one. And so finding that program that's meeting that need and supporting them, I think is going to help us move the needle on diaper need. And so, yes, if you're in North Carolina, come and volunteer. one of the surprising things about starting this organization is I did not realize that I would get to witness the generosity of people every single day. We have 800 volunteers a month that come through these doors to help us do this work, and I get to be a part of that, and that's powerful. So find that program in your community and volunteer your time and make a difference.
You heard it, folks. Do it. So many twists and turns. What did you think of Michelle's story? Share your thoughts below and share your questions and comments about getting a building. Maybe you've done it before. Share some tips for the rest of us. Once again, if you're looking for more resources, check out my website, changemakercafe.com. We have our new Changemaker Accelerator membership up there for you to join if that's something you're ready to do, and our newsletter, Changemaker Mondays. Changemaker all around. So you can get weekly insights on fundraising, management of a nonprofit, social entrepreneurship, and more. I'll leave all of those links below this video for you to check out. That's all I have for you today, and I hope that this was helpful. I'll see you next time. I'm Amber Melanie Smith.